We interact with, weaponized language like every single day.
Oh, constantly.
Right. But before a word can actually tear through the fabric of a society, it has to be manufactured.
Exactly. It doesn't just appear out of nowhere.
No, it doesn't. So today we're tracing that exact manufacturing process from a comforting thought and a frightened mind all the way to its deployment as, well, digital ammunition.
It's a fascinating life cycle.
It really is. We're looking at this brilliant piece of writing from 2011 by John Novick Jr. It's a poem titled Familiar Fires, and it's part of his larger America Actually series.
Right.
So we're going to do a deep dive into the absolute mechanics of how rhetoric is forged, because it's just incredibly relevant for you, the listener, navigating today's information landscape.
I mean, what makes this specific piece so vital is that Novick, he treats rhetoric not as some, invisible abstract force, but as a tangible industrial product.
A physical thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He basically gives us a mechanical schematic of modern outrage.
He does, and he sets a very specific tone right from the jump. I love this part. The dedication of the poem is a quote from Bob Dylan.
Oh, right.
It says, "For every hung-up person in the whole wide universe."
Which is such a great opening.
It is. On the surface, that sounds inviting, maybe even like a little folksy.
Right, yeah.
But make no mistake, the dissection that follows is brutal. If you want to understand the architecture of the media you consume, this provides just a remarkably precise lens to view it through.
It's an incredibly precise lens, but it starts in a deeply vulnerable, very human place.
Yeah.
Because we often assume that aggressive, weaponized language originates from a place of, dominance or power.
Right, like people shouting from a mountaintop or something.
Exactly. But Novick completely reorients that perspective. He argues the true origin point is actually rooted entirely in fear.
Which is wild to think about. He opens with this image of trembling minds seeking comfort.
Yes.
They're looking for the certainty and the clarity of, quote, familiar fires. And he describes these fires as instinctual, sheltered, ritualistic, and unaware.
Right.
But, I have to ask, isn't calling the public trembling minds a bit, condescending?
What?
It almost sounds like he's saying anyone who wants a community or just a sense of safety in their worldview is just a coward hiding in the dark.
I mean, it's a fair pushback, but I really don't think he's framing it as cowardice.
No.
No, I think he's diagnosing a biological imperative.
Okay, how so?
Well, think about the complexity of the modern world, right?
Yeah.
The sheer volume of data, the rapid cultural shifts, the constant crises.
It's exhausting.
It is objectively overwhelming. So when the human mind is overwhelmed by chaos, it naturally trembles.
Right.
Seeking certainty isn't necessarily cowardly. It's an instinctual survival mechanism.
Yeah.
Like when you're out in the cold and the dark, you look for a fire to warm yourself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You look for a group of people huddled around that same fire, finding shelter and shared beliefs.
But the fire he describes isn't actually sustaining them, is it?
No, not at all.
Because he introduces this massive paradox to describe the exact nature of this comfort zone. He says these familiar fires provide heat without warmth, light without vision, creation without imagination.
Exactly. That's the crux of it. And to really grasp what he's saying, we have to look at the physics of his metaphor.
Okay.
In a genuine physical fire, warmth implies comfort, sustenance, human connection.
Right.
But heat is just thermal energy. It
Right.
can agitate you, it can burn you, it can keep you awake, but it doesn't sustain you.
Wow. Yeah.
And same goes for light versus vision. A blinding light might eliminate the small circle you're standing in, but it destroys your night vision for anything beyond that circle.
That is such a perfect way to put it. It perfectly captures the feeling of sitting alone in the dark, huddled around a glowing smartphone or a laptop screen.
Okay.
You're just constantly scrolling through a feed populated entirely by people who agree with you. So you're getting the heat of information, the constant friction and validation that your side is right and the other side is wrong.
Yes, the friction.
And you're getting the literal light radiating from the monitor. But there is no actual human warmth.
Exactly.
You aren't genuinely connecting with anyone. And there's zero vision because you aren't looking out into the wider world or challenging your own perspectives.
Right, it's an intellectual dead end.
Yeah, an intellectual dead end that just feels remarkably safe.
And that dead end is exactly what he means by unaware. When you're trapped in that sheltered, ritualistic space, you aren't critically examining the world.
You're just seeking the clarity of the familiar.
Right. But Novick doesn't let us sit around the campfire for very long.
No, he really ramps it up.
Because once those trembling minds are gathered, the heat inevitably gets turned up. We transition from this passive state of seeking comfort into a highly active, highly dangerous manufacturing process.
Right. The environment completely shifts here. We suddenly find ourselves on what feels like an industrial factory floor.
Yeah.
Novik writes, ideas forged in familiar fires at 621 degrees Fahrenheit melt into words, taking 24 hours to harden fully in the mold.
This is where the metallurgy of rhetoric comes into play.
Yeah.
Notice the hyper-specific imagery there. 621 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, that stood out to me.
That specificity just jolts you out of the abstract poetry and grounds you in physical reality.
So what is the significance of 621?
Well, fun fact for you, 621 degrees Fahrenheit is the exact melting point of lead.
Wait, really? Lead?
Yep. And think about lead. It's toxic, it's heavy, it's highly malleable when it's hot, but incredibly dense and rigid when it cools.
Oh, wow. That is incredibly intentional.
Absolutely. By heating these abstract, fear-based ideas to exactly 621 degrees, Novik is describing a phase transition. The raw emotional ore of those trembling minds is melted down into a toxic, liquid state, ready to be shaped.
And the shape it takes is entirely dependent on the container it's poured into.
Exactly.
Because he specifies that these liquid ideas take 24 hours to harden fully in the mold. And we have to talk about that 24-hour time frame. Like, that cannot be a coincidence. This feels like a direct indictment of the 24-hour news cycle, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the 24-hour media cycle is the mold itself.
Yeah.
Because human psychology struggles with perpetual ambiguity.
Yeah.
We don't like things to remain fluid for very long.
Yeah.
You know, it makes us anxious.
Right. We want answers now.
So the media apparatus provides a service. It takes the liquid, molten complexity of the world and pours it into a daily, predictable mold.
Just picture a real-world example of this mechanism in action for the listener. Let's say a massive, incredibly nuanced geopolitical event happens at, like, 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, yeah.
It's messy, the facts are fluid, and no one quite knows what it means.
Right.
But by noon, the commentators on the 24-hour networks have started melting it down.
Right.
By 6 in the evening, they've poured that liquid event into an ideological mold. And by midnight, it has completely hardened into a rigid 3-word hashtag.
Exactly.
The nuance is entirely gone. An incredibly complex global event has been manufactured into a solid block of rhetoric.
And once it's hardened into that shape, it is incredibly difficult to melt back down.
Yeah, it really is.
It becomes a fixed talking point. But Novik includes a very specific, crucial warning about this manufacturing process.
Oh, right, the warning.
He says, but keep liquids away from molten words, or they can explode.
Right. Which just sounds like standard safety protocol in a foundry.
It is. It's a classic metallurgical reality.
Yeah.
If you introduce a cold liquid, like water, into a vat of molten metal.
Oh, it's a disaster.
Yeah, the water rapidly expands into steam and causes a catastrophic, violent explosion.
Right.
So metaphorically, we have to ask, what represents the liquid in this scenario?
Well, I would assume it's anything fluid, right? Anything nuanced.
Exactly. It's any complex truth that hasn't been rigidly hardened by the familiar fire. Imagine a rigid, hyperheated rhetorical environment, like a cable news panel or a hypopartisan forum where they're in the middle of forging their daily outrage.
Oh, I can picture it.
If you try to introduce a fluid, nuanced fact into that space, the reaction isn't a calm intellectual debate.
No, not at all.
The system violently rejects the nuance. It triggers an explosion of hostility.
Wow. Yeah, it really does. So once these ideas have survived the foundry and they've hardened into these rigid slogans and talking points, they can't just sit on a factory shelf.
Right, they have a purpose.
Exactly. They have to be distributed. And this is where Novik shifts his central metaphor again, moving us seamlessly from industrial manufacturing to modern ballistics.
We see a complete transition from hardened objects into digital ammunition.
Yeah.
The text says, words fired from greedy rounds, barrels digitized, rationalized, supersized in high definition, increase in velocity with recognition.
He is meticulously breaking down the ballistics of digital media there.
He really is.
I mean, I'm fascinated by the phrase barrels digitized. The greedy mouths of the pundits or the politicians or the weapons themselves, but the delivery systems, the literal gun barrels pointing out at the public are our digital platforms.
Exactly.
And they're supersized in high definition. Like, they're completely inescapable. You see them on your phone, your television, the billboards on the highway.
And remember the historical context here, too.
Right, 2011.
Yeah, Novik wrote this in 2011. This was right at the dawn of algorithmic social media feeds.
That's crazy to think
I
about.
know, the architecture of the platforms we use today was just being laid down,
Yeah.
and he saw exactly how the physics of this new environment would operate.
He saw it come.
Pay close attention to the propulsion system he describes. They increase in velocity with recognition.
Engagement as the propellant.
Precisely. How does a piece of digital ammunition travel faster and hit harder?
Through recognition.
Yes. Likes, shares, retweets, angry comments. The algorithm doesn't care if the information is true or helpful.
No, it only cares if it's recognized.
Right. The more a weaponized word is recognized by those trembling minds looking for their familiar fires, the faster it gets distributed across the network.
And you can actually feel that algorithmic acceleration in the rhythm of the poem itself.
Oh yeah, the pacing.
The pacing suddenly shifts and becomes frantic, almost overwhelming. Novick describes it as animation, incitation, stimulation, incessant and mindless wild choreography, mad improvisation.
It's exhausting just reading it.
It is. The delivery of these words isn't some thoughtful broadcast. It's a chaotic momentum.
It is a total frenzy. Animation, incitation, stimulation, none of those words relate to informing an audience.
No.
They're entirely about agitation. The rhetoric is designed to stimulate the nervous system and incite a physical reaction.
Wow.
And I just love the duality of the phrase wild choreography, mad improvisation.
It feels like a contradiction at first, but it makes perfect sense.
It does, because it perfectly captures the two sides of modern media outrage.
Okay, break that down.
On one hand, it is highly choreographed. There are strategic talking points, specific narratives being pushed by political or corporate entities.
Right, that's the choreography.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But on the other hand, to survive in an algorithmic environment, it requires mad improvisation.
Oh, because of the constant need for content.
Yes. The influencers, the commentators, the users, they all have to react in real time, constantly escalating their rhetoric just to maintain the audience's attention.
They're throwing more and more ammunition into the crossfire, just improvising new ways to be outraged.
Precisely.
So we have this incessant, mindless crossfire of high-velocity ammunition flying everywhere. Eventually, all those bullets have to land somewhere.
They do.
Which brings us to the actual impact. We've seen the weapon fired. Now we examine the target. And Novick makes it clear that the target is the country itself.
The physical imagery here becomes devastating.
It really does.
He writes that these weaponized words are tearing through the flesh of a nation, leaving black wounds infected and screaming, deadly in their actuality, driving us mad with grief, with rage.
I mean, the concept of words leaving black wounds, infected and screaming it, takes something we so often dismiss and gives it physical stakes.
Yes.
We always hear, oh, it's just online chatter, it's just a post, it's just words.
Right, minimizing it.
But Novick is giving us a literary critique of how this mechanized rhetoric actually inflicts trauma on the collective psyche of a society.
And we really have to look closely at the mechanism of how these wounds are inflicted, because Novick describes the tactics used to tear this flesh, citing televised telepathy and dog whistle orchestration.
Oh, let's connect that back to the beginning of the journey.
Yeah.
We know what a dog whistle is, right? It's coded language, a frequency designed to be heard only by a specific in-group while remaining deniable to the general public.
Exactly.
But how does that orchestration actually work on a mechanical level?
Well, it works specifically because it targets the exact trembling minds we discussed at the very beginning.
Oh, I see.
The dog whistle is tuned to the frequency of the familiar fire. It's designed to completely bypass logic and critical thinking, triggering the deeply held, instinctual fears of that specific group.
Right. And keeping it totally neutral here, this happens across the board.
Oh, absolutely. It's a structural tactic.
Mm-hmm.
The speaker uses a coded phrase, and the audience receives it almost like telepathy.
Hence the phrase televised telepathy.
Exactly. They know exactly what it means, who to be afraid of, and who to be angry at. It is a deliberate orchestration of grief and rage.
But wait, I have to challenge one of the key lines he uses right around here.
Okay, what is it?
Novick writes that all of this virtual truth murders an age.
Mm-hmm.
If the truth he's talking about is virtual, essentially simulated or fake, how can it result in actual, physical, deadly wounds?
That's the big question.
Isn't that a contradiction? Like, how does a fake bullet leave a real hole?
That is the brilliant tension of the entire piece. The truth is simulated. It's an alternative fact that was melted down and poured into the 24-hour mold.
Right.
It lacks objective reality outside of its specific echo chamber. But the emotional and societal damage it causes is not simulated.
Oh, the damage is real?
The grief is real. The rage driving a wedge through communities is real. The flesh of a nation being torn apart is an actual consequence.
Wow.
When he says virtual truth murders an age, he means that when a society allows synergetic realities to completely replace a foundation of shared objective facts, the era of reason is murdered.
Man. The truth was virtual, the delivery system was digital, but the pain and the consequences are entirely actual.
Yeah, precisely.
So you would logically assume that after witnessing this devastating high-definition crossfire and seeing the very real sorrow it produces, there would be a pause.
You'd hope so.
You would think that society would force a moment of reckoning to look at the damage.
Right.
But Novick takes us to the conclusion of this life cycle, and it is incredibly cynical.
It resolves with a shocking and immediate lack of accountability.
Yeah.
The final stage of the life cycle reads, an absolution is sought and granted before the cost of the sin can be reckoned.
Before the cost of the sin can be reckoned.
Yeah.
I mean, the speed of that forgiveness is just chilling.
It's the ultimate tragedy of speed. We talked about the velocity of the weaponized words increasing through recognition.
Right, the algorithm pushing it faster.
Well, the forgiveness travels at that exact same algorithmic speed. Just as the 24-hour mold churns out new rhetoric every single day, the cycle of outrage and forgiveness happens so quickly that there's literally no time to measure the damage left behind.
You see it happen constantly.
All the time.
A public figure or a network deploys a highly destructive piece of rhetoric. It causes a frenzy, it inflicts actual damage on a community, and then what happens?
I apologize.
They issue a prepackaged, perfectly formatted apology, and the absolution is instantly granted by their own side.
Yep.
The media cycle just swallows it and moves on to the next crisis.
Because stopping to actually reckon with the cost of the sin would require looking at the black infected wounds.
Which is uncomfortable.
Very. It would require acknowledging the reality of the damage caused by the words you supported. And nobody wants to do that.
No, because acknowledging the damage would mean you have to leave the familiar fire.
Exactly.
Which brings this entire mechanism right back to the beginning.
Full circle.
This cheap, instant absolution is the exact mechanism that allows the trembling minds to maintain their comfort. If you never have to reckon with the cost of your rhetoric, you never have to confront your own unawareness. You can just hit the reset button. The loop seamlessly closes itself.
You seek the shelter of the familiar fire again. You warm your hands with the heat that provides no warmth. You allow your fears to melt into the 24-hour mold, and you prepare to fire the next volley tomorrow.
It's terrifying.
Novick maps out a perfectly closed, self-sustaining industrial loop of rhetorical destruction.
Yeah.
The words are forged, they are fired, the target is wounded, the sin is instantly forgiven, and the minds go back to trembling in the dark, waiting for the next spark.
It is just a staggering journey that Novick charts in just a few stanzas.
It really is.
We started in the instinctual, sheltered comfort of a fearful mind. We walked onto the industrial floor to watch that fear melted down at 621 degrees and poured into a 24-hour mold. We saw those hardened words weaponized in high definition, fired from digitized platforms fueled by the velocity of our own engagement.
Chris.
We saw them tear through the flesh of the country, utilizing dog whistles to orchestrate real grief and real rage from virtual truth.
It's nuts.
And finally, we saw the tragedy of a culture that grants cheap, instant absolution before it ever understands the true cost of the damage.
And again, it's a testament to the power of close reading that a poem written over a decade ago can act as a perfectly calibrated mechanical schematic for the information ecosystem you're standing inside right now.
Right.
It is all functioning exactly as designed.
It is functioning exactly as designed, but that doesn't mean we're forced to remain a part of the machinery.
No, thankfully.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive today. We've looked at the life cycle of these familiar fires, but we don't want to leave you without a final thought for how you navigate this space moving forward.
Absolutely.
Novick warns us about the seductive pull of those fires that offer heat, but absolutely no vision. He warns us about words taking 24 hours to harden fully in the mold. So, tomorrow, as you scroll through your feeds, as you watch the daily commentary, and as you absorb the day's high-velocity rhetoric, ask yourself, are you letting those complex events harden into unquestioned, rigid beliefs?
Right.
Or are you brave enough to step away from the familiar fire before the mold actually sets?